Welcome to the Old Time Radio Westerns. I'm your host, Andrew Rhynes, and I'm excited to bring you another episode absolutely free. This is one of over 80 episodes released monthly for your enjoyment. Now, let's get into this episode.
The Lone Ranger. Hi-yo, Silver! A fiery horse with the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hearty Hi-yo, Silver! The Lone Ranger. Is produced
The label
by
on the loaf of
Campbell
Merita
Urine Corp.
old-fashioned enriched white bread. And I quote, "Enriched means that 8 ounces of this bread supplies the following percentages of minimum daily requirement for these essential food substances. Thiamine, vitamin B1, 90%. Riboflavin, vitamin B2, 66%. Niacin, another B vitamin, 75%. Iron, 62.5%. Calcium, 20%. But that's just the outside story. What goes into Merita old-fashioned white bread is another story. A story of a rich old recipe. A recipe that produces an old-fashioned bread that's rounded at the top, with a crust that's golden brown, firm yet tender, moist, and very delicious. So when you buy Merita old-fashioned enriched white bread, read what's on it, and remember what's in it.
With his faithful Indian companion Tonto, the daring and resourceful masked rider of the plains led the fight for law and order in the early western United States. Nowhere in the pages of history can one find a greater champion of justice. Return with us now to those thrilling days of yesteryear. From out of the past come the thundering hoofbeats of the great horse Silver. The Lone Ranger rides again. Come on, Silver. Let's go, big fellow. I'm Silver! Hooray!
Edna Corey left the general store in Rimrock and started toward the hitch rack where her horse was waiting. As she moved along the boardwalk, the bulky figure of a man suddenly blocked her path and spoke.
What's your hurry, Miss Edna?
Oh! Startled by this interruption, Edna paused a moment and looked up into the grinning face of Steve Bartlett, who owned a ranch near her father's spread.
If you don't mind, Mr. Bartlett, I'm in a hurry.
Oh, now, Miss Edna, no use being unfriendly, seeing as how we're neighbors and your father and I are aiming to get together on a land deal and all.
Bartlett, let go of my arm.
Calm down. I'm not aiming to hurt you, Miss Edna. Your father'd like for us to be friends.
I said let me go.
Lady said let go, Bartlett.
Oh, you sneaking coyote. Oh, let's...
He outdrawn Bartlett. Yeah, I saw him sock steal.
Please, you're attracting a crowd. Put away your guns.
All right, go on. Beat it, everybody. This'll be settled another time.
Please holster your guns.
All right, Miss Corey.
Might as well. So Bob Allison, the nester, is trying to play the big hero, huh? The time will come and you'll be sorry for what you did a minute ago, Allison.
I'll be waiting, Bartlett. I have a horse at the hitch rack, Miss Corey, if you're heading that way.
Well, thank you.
So long, Bartlett.
My turn will come later, Allison.
I'm afraid I caused you trouble.
Don't let it worry you, ma'am.
We better get started. Steady.
Easy, boy. I'm ready. Come on, get up. Get up.
That evening, Hank Corey and his daughter sat on the front porch of the ranch house. They watched intently as a horseman rode in toward them. Then Hank spoke.
Looks like Steve Bartlett coming to call. Yep, that's Steve, all right.
I'm going inside.
Here we are.
But, Dad,
Sit down. Steve is a friend and neighbor. I don't want him to think you left because you didn't want to see him.
But I don't want to see him. can talk to you.
Sit down, do you hear me? Hi, Steve. Glad to see you. Come up and join us.
Hi, Hank. Evening, Miss Edna.
I'm going to my room right now.
Edna, come back here. Edna. I'll settle this right now. No daughter of mine is...
Oh, forget it, Hank. Sit down. Trouble is, you don't realize Edna's a grown woman now. She's bound to act ornery now and then.
That's the first time Edna's ever crossed me, Steve. And, well, I never seen her give way like that before.
Well, I reckon a girl acts like that when you talk about some hombre she thinks she's falling for.
Say, wait a minute. Are you talking about that Nestor you mentioned before, Bob Ellison?
Uh-huh. She got sore at me in town today because I told her you wouldn't like having them going together.
By thunder, I'm going to settle this with Edna right now. I'm going to tell her to stay away from that ornery young...
Now, wait a minute, Hank. That's the wrong way to go about it. The thing to do is to face Bob Allison, lay the law down to him about it.
All right. And that's what I'll do.
He usually hangs out in the cafe in town in the evenings. You can warn him in front of witnesses. Then if he pulls anything tricky...
All right. I'll get my horse, then we'll go to town and settle...
Better if I don't go with you.
Huh?
I hope someday to get Edna to like me, you know, and if I'm mixed up in this, she'll turn against me more than ever.
Yes, I guess you're right. I'll ride to town alone and see Allison. And before I get through talking, he'll know I really mean what I say.
That night, the Lone Ranger decided to find out for himself what was taking place in town. He spent considerable time disguising himself as an Indian. When his disguised appearance was finally approved by Tonto, the Lone Ranger knew it would get by the less critical townsmen. The two men mounted and rode to the edge of town where they left their horses and went on foot to the cafe. The crowd paid no attention to the two Indians who moved to the back of the cafe and stood as though waiting for someone. For some length of time, the Lone Ranger and Tonto watched and listened to the general conversation around them. Finally, the door opened, and the rancher Hank Corey came into the cafe.
I'm looking for Bob Ellison. Where is he?
Well, he's in here someplace. Yeah, he's at one of the back tables.
Here I am, Mr. Corey. Back here.
Let's get closer to that table, Tonto. Unnoticed by the others, the Lone Ranger and Tonto, seemingly both Indians, moved closer to Bob's table.
Ellison, I want to talk to you.
Howdy, Mr. Corey. Draw up a chair.
Nope. What I got to say can be said better standing. What's more, you better listen close, because I don't aim to repeat what I have to say, you savvy?
All right, I'm listening. Go ahead.
I understand you've been keeping company with my daughter behind my back.
Well, Mr. Corey, if you call riding out the trail as far as your gate with her today keeping company...
you ornery sneaking Nestor. Standing there trying to laugh it off isn't going to do you any good.
Now, hold on, Mr. Corey. Those are kind of harsh words you're using. Seeing as how you're Edna's dad, I don't
Edna, eh? So that's what you call her.
She gave me the right to call her.
Well, I'm taking that back here and now, you savvy. She's Miss Corley to you. And from now on, stay away from her.
And what if I don't?
If you don't, I'll come gunning for you and shoot you down like an ornery coyote. Then I'll get the other ranchers together and burn out every yellow-bellied nester in the valley. That's all I got to say to you, Allison. Now I'll leave.
As Corey stalked out of the cafe, Bob Allison stood looking after him for a moment. Then he too got up and left. A few minutes later, the Lone Ranger and Tonto eased out the back door and went to the place where they had left their horses.
Well, Silver. Rancher plenty mad, Kimasabi. Me know him mean what him say to Allison.
Yes. Steve Bartlett is behind that, Tonto.
And that's what me think.
Bartlett wants to arouse the ranchers against those nesters. I'm convinced he'll find a way to get Corey to carry out his threat against Allison and the others in the valley.
We'll continue our Lone Ranger adventure in just a moment.
Ah, the good old days, back when people were old-fashioned and the things your grandmother used to bake were fresh and piping hot. Well, at the Marita Bakeries, things haven't changed much over the years. Like Marita old-fashioned enriched white bread. There's a seal on every loaf that says, Marita guarantees freshness and is sold fresh through day shown on the twist tie. Maintain freshness by storing at room temperature. And when Merita says old-fashioned, it means it's made from a rich, old-fashioned recipe. And that means it's fresh. The idea of fresh anything, especially fresh bread, has been around for a long time. But folks forget what really old-fashioned freshness tastes like. That's why there's Merita. Merita enriched white bread. It has a freshness and taste that hasn't been around for a long time. That's a fresh idea that's very old-fashioned.
Now to continue. After hearing Corey threaten Bob Allison in the Rimrock Cafe, the Lone Ranger and Tonto returned to their camp. It was almost midnight that same night when Steve Bartlett sat in the main room of his ranch house and listened to his foreman, who had just come back from town. The foreman was telling about the threat Corey made to Bob Allison.
Senor Corey, he's red in the face like a beet, and he shake his fist under the nose of Senor Allison.
Allison was taken by surprise, Carlos?
See, but he's hold his temper more than I expect.
Yeah, he was plenty scared of Hank Corey, I reckon.
Oh, I do not exactly think that. But this Senor Allison may not give Corey any reason to carry out his threats.
Well, I'll tell you about a plan I have that'll give Corey plenty of reason. Then in the morning, we'll talk the plan over with the boys. With their help, we'll put it into effect so that things will really be popping before tomorrow night.
The following morning, the Lone Ranger and Tonto rode to the edge of town and reined to a halt in a secluded clump of trees.
I'll wait here, Tonto, while you go on into town and see what you can find out.
Adios.
Adios.
Get him up, Scout.
As Tonto rode into town, he saw Steve Bartlett entering the cafe alone. Tonto left Scout at the hitch rack, then sauntered into the cafe and moved unnoticed to the back as he glanced around for Bartlett. He saw Steve standing at the bar talking to the barkeep.
You're in town early today, aren't you, Steve?
Yeah, I'm a little earlier than usual, I reckon. Got some business to attend to. A couple of my men, Carlos and Lou, are supposed to meet me here.
Well, here comes Carlos now, Steve.
Oh, you have get here already, Steve?
Yeah. Let's go back and sit at that back table. Anxious to know how you made out. Come on.
As the two men moved to a rear table, Tonto edged closer, and seeing a vacant table next to theirs, he sat down and pretended to be dozing as they settled themselves and talked in voices that were low but audible to the Indian.
How are things going?
Early this morning, I have heard from one of the cowpokes at the ranch that Senor Corey rode to the West Range.
Good. Go on.
For a while, I wait. Then I ride to the Corey ranch house. I asked the girl if you have been there.
Yeah, what'd she say?
She say no. Mr. Bartlett has not been there. Then she asked me, why would I expect you to be there so early in the morning?
Yeah, she's still peeved, but she'll get over it. You tell her what I told you to tell her?
Oh, si, Senor Steve. I have say, Senorita, it is because the Senor Bartlett is worried about your father. He say he go with the gun to find Senor Allison.
Yeah, what'd she say?
Oh, the Senorita, she is much upset. She say she must get to town pronto. Then I leave and ride fast to meet you, Steve.
Good. She ought to be coming along soon. Lou ought to be along soon, too. He went to tell Allison Edna Corey wants to see him in town.
You think this hombre Allison will come?
No? He'll come all right, and in a hurry, I'll bet. Well, now I'll ride out to the West Range and tell Hank Corey that Allison and his daughter are meeting in town. They ought to be together by the time Hank and I get back here. Wait here for me, Carlos, and we'll watch that fun.
After Steve left the cafe, Tonto went to the edge of town where the Lone Ranger was waiting. He told the masked man what he had overheard.
The Corey Ranch and the trail to the Nestor's Valley are on the other side of town. We'll circle the town and try to keep one of the three, Edna, Corey, or Allison, from coming into Rimrock. All right, let's hurry.
Keeping behind the buildings, the Lone Ranger and Tonto rode toward the other end of town. As they passed an opening between two buildings, they saw Bob Allison standing in front of the hotel. Then, as they reached the other end of town, they saw Edna Corey riding into Rimrock. She had already started up the main street when the masked man and Indian reined to a halt.
That was Edna Corey, Tonto. She'll meet Bob Allison in front of the hotel.
And what we do, Kemosabe?
Maybe we can stop Corey before he reaches town. Let's go. Come on, Silver.
Come on, Scout.
For a short distance, the Lone Ranger and Tonto raced along the west trail in hopes of meeting Hank Corey. As they started over a rise in the trail, the masked man called for a quick halt.
Wait, Tonto. Hold, Silver. Hold. Steady. Look, coming over that distant hill, a large dust cloud. That means a group of horsemen. Let's go into that arroyo to the left and hurry. Come on, Silver.
Get him up, Scout.
I don't think they noticed us. They'll soon be passing here.
I'm coming a long trail now, Kemosabe.
Yes, I know. Quiet, Silver. That's Hank Corey with Steve Bartlett and some of the men from the Corey Ranch.
That's right. It's not safe to try stopping.
Yes, I know. We'll follow them to town. Let's hurry. Come on, Silver.
Let's go.
Meantime, Edna had ridden to Rimrock and went searching for her father and Bob Allison. She saw Bob in front of the hotel.
Whoa there. Whoa, steady, easy. Bob. Oh, Bob.
I got your message and came to town right away.
Message? I didn't send any message.
What? Why, don't savvy this. Why are you here? Didn't you send an hombre to say you wanted to see me?
No, Bob, I didn't. I see it all now. It was Dad's way of getting you here. He's out gunning for you.
Now, take it easy, honey. Your dad warned me yesterday that if I kept on seeing you, he'd come gunning for me. But up to
when
now, he
Dad's
hasn't...
temper is up, there's no telling what he'll do, Bob. He must have changed his mind or something. Anyway, you must leave town right away before he sees. Oh, please, Bob.
No, honey, don't take on so. There's no need to worry about your dad getting hurt.
About Dad getting hurt? Bob, then you'll go before he...
I'm staying.
But he'll shoot you. He'll kill you. Oh, Bob, don't wait, Bob, please.
Too late, Edna. There's your dad now, dismounting at the hitch rack.
For a tense moment, Bob and Edna stood side by side and watched as Hank Corey dismounted with Steve and the other men. Edna's father stood staring at them, his hands hanging at his sides. Then he left the other men and walked slowly to the middle of the street. News of the impending gun battle had spread rapidly, and townsmen lined the sidewalks to watch. Hank Corey finally called out to Bob Allison.
Allison, you didn't pay any attention to the warning I gave you last night. Now I'm giving you a chance to come out into the street and beat me to the draw.
Bob, I'm going to tell Dad we didn't plan this meeting.
No, Edna. He won't believe you. And folks will think I'm being yellow. I gotta go now, honey. Adios.
No, Bob, no.
Slowly, Bob Allison walked into the street, then turned and slowly closed the distance between Corey and himself. When he was about 10 feet away from Hank Corey, Bob stopped and stood with hands hanging.
Allison, Steve Bartlett is going to count to 3. On the count of 3, we draw, you savvy? All right, Steve, start counting.
The watching crowd tensed as they waited for the count. They looked from the young nester to the older rancher and back again, as the two men stood motionless, staring at each other.
1.
As the first number was called, the attention of the crowd was focused on the tense drama before them. They knew Hank Corey's reputation as a gunman, and a wave of silent admiration broke over the watchers at Bob Allison's steady nerve.
2.
The spectators moved restlessly as the final count neared, and even Edna, back on the walk, watched in tense, horrified silence as she waited for the fatal number to be called. Then...
3. Out my hand!
Hold it, everybody!
Moving quickly, the masked man and Tonto advanced to the middle of the street with drawn guns, each covering either side of the street.
Hey, a masked man and an Indian. Look at those guns.
The masked man's bullet nicked Corey's hand.
You creased my hand and made me drop my gun, mister.
Look at Bob Allison, Corey. He still hasn't drawn. He didn't even make a move to draw.
He's right. Allison didn't try to draw. He was going to take Corey's bullet.
Bob. Oh, Bob, thank heaven you're safe.
I just couldn't see drawing against your dad, honey.
Allison, you mean to say you didn't intend to draw against me?
Of course you didn't, Corey. He didn't want to draw against the father of the girl he loves.
By thunder, regardless of that, and in spite of him having you nearby to interfere, mister, I'll call my men here.
Allison doesn't know me. He never saw me before. We found out that certain men planned this to suit their own purposes.
Yeah? What do you mean?
Steve Bartlett and his men planned it. He wants Allison out of the way, and he wants to see the valley cleared of nesters. One of his men got your daughter to come here. Another tricked Bob into coming to town. Then Steve Bartlett himself went to tell you that they were here together.
Dad, the masked man's right. I came to town because I was told you'd already come here to kill Bob.
I came here because one of Bartlett's men said Edna was in trouble. Bartlett wanted to get back at me for knocking him down yesterday when he insulted Edna.
That's right.
Bartlett insulted Edna? Why, that dirty...
I'll fix that nester right now.
No, you won't.
Helmeen, grab Bartlett and his sneaking cowpokes. We're going to run them out of Rimrock for good and all. Well, Allison, I guess I was a fool for letting myself be led so easy. I reckon ought to appreciate the way you were willing to take a bullet rather than plug me for Edna's sake. So, let's start all over and be friends. Shall we, son?
Why, sure.
Bob, I guess maybe Dad won't object if you ride home with me again. Will you, Dad?
Well, I reckon someday you'll both be riding right past the ranch and into the valley. You know, having a nester in the family, it'll be different anyhow.
Dad, such a thing to say.
I hope it'll be like that someday, honey.
Who knows? The masked man seemed to know how you felt about me, even before you did yourself, Bob.
Yeah.
Why, he and the Indian are gone. Who is he, anyhow?
You know, I've figured out that there's only one man who could crease the back of my hand to spoil my aim, and that's the Lone Ranger.
Remember way back when you were a kid growing up, you always found time to make a side trip to the little grocery store down the block. That's where you'd find the big display of Mickey snack cakes. Remember? Didn't it make you happy to pick up a Devil Delight and take a whiff? What a chocolatey smell. And remember the coconut-sprinkled Jim Jams or the cream-filled banana flips? Well, today, Merita Bakeries still make the Mickey snack cakes you used to love as a kid. That's why Mickey snack cakes are called Smile Food. The bakers know they're spreading smiles and sunshine wherever Mickey snack cakes are sold. Find a little neighborhood grocery store today, or a big modern supermarket. Look for the display of Mickey snack cakes. They're all there, like you used to remember. The Devil Delights, the Jim Jams, the banana flips. Treat yourself to some fresh memories. Treat yourself to a Mickey snack cake. Have a smile on us.
Listen to the Lone Ranger.
Rein on, mister. Watch your head.
Ho, ho, ho.
There's horse car. Hey, Daddy. Ho, ho. Steady, boy.
Guess you recognize us, don't you, Tin Star?
Yeah, I know you. Murdering polecats.
Climb down off that horse and be quick about
Easy, boy.
Take his gun, Tar. Yeah. I've got it. Now search him. He might have another one in his pockets.
Easy now. Hey, what's this?
Just a bullet.
Tootsie, take a look at this bullet. Yeah, what about it?
It's a silver bullet.
Hey, so I see. Where were you when the masked man gave you that silver bullet?
None of your business where I was.
Was the Indian with him? The Indian named Tano?
Oh, yes, but that... No, I mean to say he
you
wasn't...
You said plenty.
Well, go ahead. You got all you want from me, why don't you shoot me?
Not just yet. Tar. Yeah, Tootsie. Get the rope off his saddle. So tie him up and lead him here while we follow the back trail and find that masked man.
Listen to The Lone Ranger, brought to you by special recording at this same time. The Lone Ranger, a copyrighted feature of The Lone Ranger Incorporated, is produced by Trendle Campbell Muir Incorporated. The part of the Lone Ranger is played by Brace Beamer. Your announcer, Fred Foy.
This has been a presentation of OTRWesterns.com, and we hope you enjoyed. Please take some time to like and rate this episode within your favorite podcast application. Follow us on Facebook by going to OTRWesterns.com/Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel by going to OTRWesterns.com/YouTube. Become one of our ranch hands and unlock some exclusive content. We want to thank the following ranch hand, Steve, who joined us recently. You too can join by going to OTRWesterns.com/donate. Send us an email, podcast@OTRWesterns.com, and you can call and leave us a voicemail, 707-986-8739. This episode is copyright under the attribution, non-commercial, share-alike copyright. For more information, go to OTRWesterns.com/copyright. Have a great day, and thanks for listening.